everyone. I was asked to show how I sew in signatures into a cover, and so I thought that I would do this little junk journal. It is a candy box cover, and I've got 3 signatures here. I've prepped the candy box. If you haven't seen how to get that ready, all you do is open up your candy box, cut off the top and the bottom tabs, decide which end you want as a spine. I think I would pick this. Cut that strip off, and I glue that strip to the inside of the box just to make that spine a little bit stronger, and it gives it a little color too. So that's all I've done to prep the cover, and I have made 3 signatures from different kinds of paper. It is a junk journal. I have made some pockets and added some envelopes and that kind of thing. So all I've done is taken my pieces of paper and sandwiched them in together and folded them in half, and that's my signature. Alright, so the first thing that I want to do is I'm sewing this together with a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, and I'm using some baker's twine to sew it together. So I need to punch the holes and figure out all that. So I've cut a piece of scrap paper the same height as my book, and I'm going to fold that in half. Fold it in half the long way here, and fold down, oh, not quite an inch. And this gives me a pattern to where my holes will be, and that is where my folds cross. So that is going to be where I need to punch holes. I'm going to do the signatures first. I'm just using a phone book. I like to open up a phone book and cradle the signatures in. Find the center. Make sure your pages are all the right side up and that they are placed where you want them. I put the pattern in here, and I am going to clip them together. I just use a push pin for my holes. You can use an awl, whatever you have. And I'm just going to press the holes into the signature. Putting the signature in the cradle of this book lets the pin guide the hole to the crease. This one's just a little bit off, but it helps those the signature. And I'm going to unclip my pattern and go to the next one. Make sure I've got the pages where I want them. So I like to use the phone book just to guide the push pin through the signature to the folded part of the page. Put my pattern in there so that they're all the same. Making sure that this one's the top. It's a junk journal, so I'm not too particular about everything. I kind of guesstimate with a junk journal. I don't want everything absolutely perfect. I like it just a little junky. Sure, my pages are where I want them. Clip them so the holes stay kind of where I want them. And punch the holes. Make sure you get your holes all the way through to the opposite side. But make sure you've got that done. And then take your pattern, and I am just going to, like I said, I guesstimate with this. I guesstimate a lot. I'll use a black pen so you can see what I'm doing. I am going to mark so I can see them. On the side here, I'm going to mark where I want those holes. Actually, I want them down just a tad. And I'm going to do that on the other side as well. So then I have my holes where I want them, and I am just going to guesstimate the center here. It is a little bit more than an inch, so if I put the inch in the center and about a 1/16 on either side, that's the center of the spine. So I'm going to draw a line here and here and here. These are where I need to poke holes. I need 3 signatures, so I'm going to mark where those signatures intersect, and that is the center of my spine. And then I'm just going to guesstimate somewhere in the center here for the other 2 signatures. Okay, so you can see it's just a guesstimate. It's not an exact science. Give me 1 second. Sorry, started choking there. All right. It's not an exact science, especially with a junk journal. And so I've got my holes marked, and all I need to do is take the push pin and make sure that I go all the way through and punch all my holes. You're not really going to see the lines that you've drawn here. I usually do it in pencil in case I want to erase anything, but I wanted you to be able to see the lines. So I'm just going to have to live with dark lines in the spine here. Okay, so you can see that my holes are punched all the way through. So I've got all my holes, and I don't need the phone book anymore. So to do a three-hole pamphlet stitch, you need 2 and a little bit of the height of your book. So I'm going to do 1, 2, and just a tad. I'm just going to use a regular needle. It can be blunt. You have punched the holes, so you don't need a sharp needle. But you need your eye big enough for your thread. And this one, I'm hoping will work. All right. So we're going to start with the furthest line, and the first signature goes in there. I'm going to keep it clipped so that my holes will stay together. And I am going to start from the center and pull my thread through. I'm going to clip that tail right underneath there so I don't have to worry about my tail escaping. And I'm going to go through the first hole in the center of the spine. Oh, the eye is just a little big for this double thickness. I'm going to go to the top of the same line and through the hole punched in the signature. Pull that through all the way down to the bottom. Go through the signature and then through the same line. Make sure that you're on the same line, the first line, but the bottom hole. It can be all loose like this so you can see what you're doing. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go through the center hole that already has a thread in it. You want to make sure that you don't go through that thread. So I pull that down just a little bit and go through the cover, pulling that thread out of the way so I don't go through it. That way I can tighten up my book at the end. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the signature. I don't want to go through that thread. I just want to go through the hole. And so that is that. Let me unthread it, unclip it, and let me pull everything tight. All right. You want to make sure you've got one tail. You've got a thread from the top to the bottom. You want one tail on one side and one tail on the other side. And you want to make sure that you don't have any gaps of thread. You want everything to be real tight. Look on both sides and look on your spine to make sure everything is, there's no loops, there's no extra thread. You want to pull those threads pretty tight. You don't want to buckle your pages though. And then you just make a square knot over the top of that center thread. And cut off your threads. So then you've got your first signature sewn into the cover. And all you have to do is do the other two. The next line is the center line. You want to go from one side to the other. You don't want to do the ends and then leave the center for the last. It's really hard to get in there to get that sewn together, and you can't usually get it very tight. So if you go from one side of the book to the other with your signatures, you'll be in good shape. Uh-oh. Baker's twine has many threads. Let's see if we can get this fixed. All right. Do my next signature. Go through the center. Clip my tail so it doesn't slip through. Go through the center hole in the center of the spine. Up through the center hole of the spine and through the hole you've punched through your signature. You want to make sure that you've got the right sides up all the way down to the bottom hole and through the bottom center hole in the spine. And then again, you don't want to split that thread, so you want to make sure you just go on the other side of the thread when you're going through the spine and through the signature. All right, unthread, unclip, tighten, make sure everything is good. It's a little loose right there. There's no real gaps. I just need to tighten it all up. One tail on one side of that thread, one tail on the other side. Tighten it all up. And make your square knot. I don't like to put a ton of pages in my junk journals because I put so many journaling cards and tags and tip-ins and stuff like that in there. It fattens up the pages a lot. So I like there to be a lot of room for everything. Okay, and then the last one, get my thread. Thread the needle. If you have 5 signatures, you just go from one side to the next, all the way to the across. When you're sewing, however, as many signatures as you have. Okay, so I'm going to start in the center, and my page has moved, so I've got to thread it on. And that page is moved too. It's not in the clip, so it went its own direction. So then I can go through all the pages. So I just have to thread it on to make sure that I'm not punching a new hole through it. Clip it. The clip. Go through the center hole in the spine. Top hole and through the signature. Sometimes the pages, especially if they're not the same height, will kind of shift a little bit. You just have to thread on the pages one at a time so that they go through the hole. There it goes. condense it. Down to the bottom and through the bottom hole. And then through the center hole again. And through the pages without splitting the threads, without going through that thread. Okay, doesn't want to go on. One page at a time. The holes seem to be moving. It happens sometimes. There we go. Unthread, unclip, pull them tight, check on both sides of the signature to make sure there's no threads, and then on the spine everything is good. I've got one tail on one side of the thread and one on the other, so I can pull it tight and just tie a square knot. And that is all there is to it. All there is to it. So there's a lot of space here for stuff, and I will fill that up with journaling cards and tags and all kinds of stuff. I'll probably put pockets in the front and the back. That'll fatten it up too. And that's the easiest way to, let me do it sideways. They're not absolutely perfect, but they're close enough. It is only a junk journal. A little bit of character really goes a long way. And then you have a junk journal. Thanks for watching.